I'm the strategic advisor to to Californians Together, and we want to welcome you to our 7th Community of Practice for English Learners. This has been a difficult time for teachers, parents, administrators, and those of us here wanting to chart a future that is asset-based, rigorous, and brings joy to learning to our students. We need to carry the voices of parents when making decisions about what the future means for our students who are having to learn English and the daily academic content lessons. There is much to discuss about language and academic. There has been much discussion about language and academic loss that is happening for English learners. The data from a recent survey of over 1,400 Spanish-speaking parents conducted by the Parent Institute for Quality Education, PIQUE, can help us understand why. In the poll, 45% of parents of English learners said that their children were not getting the support they needed. And a third of the parents said that they didn't understand the directions going home to them so they could help their children. Many of our parents are still working in the fields, in hospitals, and service industries as essential workers. During one of our previous Zoom session breakouts, one teacher told of a student who started crying when he or she asked for the student to explain their assignment. And with tears flowing, the child said, "Teacher, but you don't understand. There is no one here to help me." So even if every child had a device and connectivity, these issues would remain and prevent the kind of learning we want every child to receive. So today we are focused on parent engagement and the parent leadership we need to support through our ELACs and DELACs. We're going to hear from the California Department of Education about the requirements to continue supporting our ELACs and DELACs and develop parent leadership at the school site and district level. And then we're going to hear from representatives from 3 school districts who will describe how they're working with their parents of English learners during this time of digital connection and digital and distance learning. So here are some of the logistics for today's session. As I said, we're going to begin with a presentation from Dr. Veronica Aguila from the California Department of Education. Following the presentation, you'll each be joining a breakout room where you'll have time to reflect on the information shared by Veronica, and also for you to talk about what you've been doing with your ELACs or DELACs, or just what you've been doing to engage parents during this period of time of school closure. And then also to pose some questions for our panelists and for the Department of Education. We'll return to the whole group afterwards to hear from our panel. And then your questions we're going to ask you, we're going to ask one person from each breakout room to put in a promising practice and maybe questions you have. We're going to monitor the chat room, and then after the panel presentation, we'll take some of those questions and the panelists will provide us with some additional information. So it's really my honor to be able to introduce Dr. Veronica Aguila, who is the director of the English Learner Support Division. She has with her, and you'll hear from possibly them later, Elena Fajardo and Teresa Hawk, who are also administrators in that division, carrying a very heavy load for us this year. Veronica is a very strong voice for our students and their parents in Sacramento at the Department of Education. She has the tremendous skill of collaborating across the divisions of the department and advocating for an asset-based English learner policy and practices. Her passion for this work comes from her personal story of she herself growing up as an English learner and a migrant student. We appreciate her being a part of our community of practice today. She will share with us the requirements and information for allowing us to continue to work with our ELACs and DELACs. Veronica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Shelley, for the invitation to be part of this community of practice. As a parent myself, now my kids are all grown up, but it's so important for parent involvement, especially for our English learners. So thank you for the invitation. And as you mentioned, Elena Fajardo and Teresa Hawk will join me towards the end of the conversation for any questions you may have, but always know that they're ready to assist at any moment. We're still working at CDE. We're working remotely and available for you. So our topic today, as Shelley mentioned, is the ELAC and DELAC. And so I'll move forward to providing you with some background. This presentation will provide you with the following 3 topics designed to empower you with information to assist those whom you work with, especially parents. A definition of what is ELAC and DELAC, know the difference between the elected representatives and parent engagement for parents at large. There is a distinction between the two. Understand the roles and obligations within a school and district committee, and review the executive orders related to the ELAC and DELAC. I think that's the area that everyone here is interested in, and provide some ideas on how to meaningfully engage parents during a distance learning environment. Now, looking at some of the individuals that are participating, some of this is really a review, but I think it's always important to know that we're all in different continuum of learning. So in this session, we should be able to answer 3 questions. I'm sorry, can you go back? Who are the ELAC and the DELAC? What are their charges? And do we still need to engage them while we're in distance learning, and especially this summer and in the fall? So as you know, schools are required to form an English Learner Advisory Committee, more commonly known as the ELAC, when 21 or more English learners are enrolled at the school. The ELAC gives advice to the principal and staff on the policies, programs, services, and outcomes at the school level regarding English learners. The members of the ELAC are elected representatives, of which parents make up at least the same proportion as English learners in the school. I think that's key for everyone to remember. Also, a district English Learner Advisory Committee, or DELAC, is formed from representatives sent from each school, or ELAC. Every ELAC is represented at the District English Learner Advisory Committee. This committee is formed when a district has 51 or more English learners. This committee gives advice to the local school board regarding policies, programs, services, and outcomes at the district level regarding English learners. And for certain school districts, also advice on the LCAP. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Both committees must be provided with sufficient information and training to complete their duties. And some of you, I assume, would be the ones providing that training to ensure that they have meaningful engagement. There is a difference between elected representatives and parents at large. A meeting cannot be held without the elected representatives, and these representatives are charged with completing their required tasks. Parents at large are those that attend because they are interested. They're interested in the topic, or they're interested in being part of the community. These parents are not elected representatives, but can attend public meetings. Parents at large do not vote on issues or provide advice to the school principal and staff regarding the programs and services of English learners. However, they are represented by those elected and should have a process to be heard. So even in this time of distance learning, there has to be public meetings where the public or the parents at large can attend. ELAC and DELAC representatives do vote and advise on behalf of the parents at large. So each ELAC has 4 tasks, and each DELAC has 8 tasks or responsibilities to accomplish. I have provided on this slide the links to those tasks, and also a link to frequently asked questions. But let me just go over a few of the tasks or responsibilities that these committees have. The ELAC and DELAC provides advice to improve the program and services for English learners based on data, information, and opportunity to analyze information to be able to give that advice. The ELAC shall be responsible for advising the principal and staff in the development of a site plan for English learners and submitting the plan to the school site council for consideration of inclusion in the school plan for student achievement. Assistance in the development of the school-wide needs assessment and ways to make parents aware of the importance of regular school attendance. Each ELAC shall have the opportunity to elect at least one member of the district English Learner Advisory Committee, and districts with 31 or more ELACs may use, districts with 31 or more ELACs may use a system of proportional or regional representation. I think this is mainly for Los Angeles, but the DELAC shall advise the school district's governing board on at least the following tasks: development of a district master plan. And as you know, we have adopted the EL roadmap policy, and the EL roadmap guidance document, we're making reference to that as districts are updating their district master plan. The new terminology that we're using now is the EL roadmap for the district for educating programs and services for English learners. The district master plan or EL roadmap should take into consideration the school site master plan. It should conduct a district-wide needs assessment on a school-by-school basis. I think it's important to remember that the DELAC reviews and comments on the school district reclassification procedures and reviews and comments on the written notification required to be sent to parents and guardians. Also develops a development of a plan to ensure compliance with any applicable teacher or teacher aide requirements. So it is a tall order of responsibilities for parents, and that's why training is important so that they could advise in all these areas. Participation in the ELAC and DELAC provides parents with an opportunity to experience the democratic process by empowering them, informing them, and providing their own perspectives and the communities that they represent. Under LCFF, or the local control funding formula, districts with at least 50 English learners and whose total enrollment includes at least 15% English learners must establish a DELAC, and that DELAC must carry out specific responsibilities related to the LCAP. Now remember, the LCAP is now going to be submitted in December. And so it's important that these DELACs are in place and functioning. On April 23rd, the Governor Newsom signed Executive Order N5620, which extends this language, extends language about public meetings to ELACs and DELACs. Previously, there was N2920, which spoke about virtual meetings. And so I provided the links to where you could see the executive order, but generally it allows us now to do teleconferencing and virtual meetings. So I want to provide you with some ideas on how we can go about that. Especially because now we're finding ourselves thinking beyond the structures of a room with 4 walls in which people come together to meet. When we consider virtual meetings, we need to give special attention to create conditions that match participants' abilities to engage. Shelley mentioned that some parents may have the laptops or the computers, but may not be able to engage. And so if they only have a phone, we need to think of ways to engage them with only the phone, or if they have the computer, ways to provide the ability for them to be able to join. I know in the migrant meetings, we have a state migrant committee that comes together, and we taught them how to use the computers, and now they can do virtual meetings as well. So let's go over some ideas to ensure that we have equitable representation and equitable resources, and be able to provide or parent representatives the tools that they need to be able to access. So I think one of the big questions, if a school is closed to students and school personnel are working remotely, and I think we're coming to the end of the school year, do we have to continue ELAC or DELAC meetings? And that depends. If the ELAC and DELAC has finished their task for the year and the representatives do not recommend or advise to continue to meet, then no. But if then there would be no obligation to hold those meetings. The purpose of the meetings is to complete the tasks or the responsibilities that I went over before and to take advice into consideration. Now, the school year will begin again in August, so that we need to keep in mind that there are new tasks that will be coming this fall. So I think it's difficult to talk about one school year finishing and one school year beginning. So year round, there's, depending on where you are in the state, some schools are year round, some schools are done for the school year now, for example, Elk Grove, but some other schools are going till June 15. So it's important to look at your calendar and to look at the responsibilities of the school year to ensure that the ELACs and DELACs continue to meet as to meet the responsibilities. So in order to do so, especially right now, let's take a look at the IT inventory that you have at your schools or those you work with, the resources, the internet, the video cams. Look at the assigned roles and responsibilities, and to make sure that the agendas are posted within the 72 hours that they need to be done. Because even though this may be a video call or a stream live video web virtual meeting or a conference call, there's still that need to do the Green Act, which is 72 hours of posting. And this slide provides you with some examples of how the meetings could be held, taking into account that depending on where you are in the state, you may have different resources available. We know in some areas the internet is still spotty, so conference call may be the best way to hold that meeting, but it shouldn't be preventing us from holding those meetings. So it's also important that during virtual meetings, there's housekeeping rules, establish rules of who will speak, how to raise their hand, kind of like this webinar. You know, I'm raising my finger every time you're moving the slides. So we teach those to parents too, so that we can do roll call, follow the agenda, and also have a time for public comment, whether it's a chat box or create and designate an email. In this example, we have public comments at gov.com. ELSD has created elsd@cde.ca.gov email because it makes it easier for participants to then be able to email. And then text options. We know in our communities, especially our Latino communities and other communities, they're using WhatsApp more as the tool. And so using texting and calling through WhatsApp may be another good way to engage all the community. So here's some examples. The example from San Francisco Bay Consortium provides how to set up a web page, so and how to set up those public meeting agendas, and also the California Department of Education. We've been holding our state board meetings. People call in to express their public comment. That's another guide that you can use to follow for virtual meetings. And last but not least, we have our department or division, the English Learner Support Division, that's available for you. Follow us on Twitter, join our listserv. We've created newsletters for parents, and we've created webinars for parents. Every week, we've held, the last 4 weeks, we've held a webinar for parents, or how to engage parents in their communities, because it's not only the DELAC and ELAC that we need to engage parents with, we need to engage them in the learning with their students and how to support their students. And we know that providing that support to our English learner parents and migratory parents, it's different than when we have just a general parent engagement. So these webinars are put out through Region 15, CTA, and CDE to be able to have more resources for you. So if you haven't joined us in one, there's another one coming up tomorrow. And I could put that on the chat as well. So thank you for the invitation, and please do email us any questions. And at the end of this webinar, we're here to answer any questions you may have after you do the breakout room. So thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Veronica. So many people, quite a few people have put in the chat room how they are conducting the virtual ELACs and DELACs. We'll be able to hear from them in just a minute when they go into the breakout rooms. And I think the information you gave us, Veronica, is really going to be helpful for moving forward, not only, as you said, to end the school year, but to start our school year when we reconvene in the fall. So, so we're going to go to our breakout rooms in just a minute. We just want to say a couple of things about the breakout rooms. We want you to keep focused on the issue of parent engagement. There'll be some questions, I'll talk to you, there'll be some questions that your facilitator will use to conduct the conversation breakout room. I'm hoping all of you had a really good discussion in your room. Several questions came up in our breakout room, and so we're hoping that a member from each of the groups will enter in the questions and some of the high points that came out of your breakout session while we go to our panel presentation. So again, please enter your questions and also some really good resources that you may have heard about in your group. So it really is exciting for us to be able to share, to be able to listen to and have 3 school districts share with us their practices, not only with DELACs and ELACs, but also with other kinds of parent engagements. And so we first want to introduce Joanne Clark, who's the Senior Director, and Eduardo Munoz, who's the DELAC President, and they are from San Leandro Unified School District. And after them, we're going to hear from Lena Richter and Bonnie Cervantes, the Director and the Coordinator of Categorical Programs for Glendale Unified School District. And then last will be Elizabeth Jimenez, who is a 3rd grade teacher, a member of their ELAC committee, was a DELAC chair, but is also doing some very special things in terms of parent engagement. So well, let's get started with San Leandro Unified School District.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me okay?
Terrific.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Joanne Clark. I'm the Senior Director for San Leandro Unified School District, in charge of the Educational Services Division. And I have with me today Eduardo Munoz, our DELAC President. And our, and our program coordinator that supports our programs for college and career readiness, Jasmine Sarabia.
Hello.
I'm gonna get used to this. There you go. So our DELAC board, of course, is the following. Mr. Munoz is our president. We have Nancy Pelayo, our vice president, Ruben Guerrero, our secretary, Elizabeth Martinez, our parliamentarian, and then myself and Jasmine support the DELAC board. And just a little bit about where we're located. San Leandro is in between, we say Hayward and Oakland. We stretch over 2 freeways, the 580 interstate and also 880. So you see a stretch beyond those 2 freeways. And we have 8 elementary schools. We have 2 middle schools, and we have 2 high schools, one being a continuation high school and one comprehensive high school. And our demographics are, we have a very diverse population. We have 26.5% of our current students are English learners, 13% of special education, and we have over 60% is our free and reduced students, as well as 15 students in foster youth, 106 students in our homeless population, and we have an unduplicated count of 66.7. We're very diverse school district. As you can see here on the slide, we have our largest enrollment is our Hispanic population, as well as very diverse groups. We have over 38 languages that are recorded in our district that our families speak. And we have a total enrollment of over 9,000 students. I always say it's the perfect size school district. But just to get started, before we go into our strategies, just our response to COVID-19 during this time. Like all of you, we were faced on March 13th with the notice that we had to close schools. And so we immediately went into the communication to our parents and to our staff and our students to take home your materials and to get ready for distance learning and an unforeseen future. The following week, we implemented the meal service plan. We started to develop procedures to pass out Chromebooks. And then it actually started on the following week. We sent out home learning resource packets online, as well as deployed Chromebooks starting on the March 27th, and also then the 31st and of April 2nd. We had spring break officially on March 29th. And that was our week that we were able to really meet with all of our administrators and key leaders in the district to plan for our distance learning, which we coined and we called it emergency distance learning, because we knew and we know that if we were operating a distance learning program, we would have the time and the resources to develop a strong distance learning program. And we called it emergency distance learning because we were faced with such a short turnaround to do this work. But then starting April 5th, that was the start of our professional development for all of our teachers that week. And then the emergency distance learning program started April 13th. Our first priority in the district was, and our #1 goal for all departments, not just in educational services, but same thing for business and operations and our personnel and human services, was that our #1 goal was to stay connected. We wanted to stay connected to our students and to stay connected to our families. We made sure that was our message clear from the beginning through our superintendent all the way to everyone involved in the district. And so how we did that is we made sure we had phone calls going out, we had home visits planned, and we have an online platform called Parent Square that we have been able to reach 99.2% of our families in this format. What we deployed is what we call our home learning plans to support our students, and we actually set up translation hotlines. I would say that was probably one of our strong strategy, was to have hotlines set up that way you could record messages and that our staff would return those calls within 24 hours. And we had it set up in Spanish and in Chinese. We also created, during our professional learning for staff, we made sure we focused on the English language development and support that our students and families needed at this time, and provided that as professional development to all of our teachers during that April 6th week of when we were at back on school distance learning. And this is where I'm going to actually start to ask my team that's here to help out. I just gave an overview of the district, but we really wanted to talk to you about how we have kind of reignited our ELACs and our DELACs during this time. And I'm going to start by probably saying that one of the most important strategy and thing that we've done is forming those relationships with each other. For example, Mr. Munoz is on the line, and Jasmine and we've been in phone calls, we've been in Zooms. We've just got to know each other more, and having those relationships with the people that are doing this work was really important for us to reignite our ELACs and our DELACs. Specifically, I think when this all started, we had to do site principal training around ensuring that they were going to move forward with their ELACs. So just because we were changing the setting, it did not mean we were going to cease or postpone any of our already set up meetings. And we did that through making sure we made phone calls, we did emails to our ELAC members, and we made sure we set up the Parent Square for communication. And then I'll have Jasmine jump in real quick about what she did as her role.
So one of my important roles is contacting our DELAC and ELAC representatives and communicating with the school site principals, and making sure that every time I make phone calls to all our representatives for DELAC and ELAC to invite them to the events and dates that we're hosting. I send them the calendar invite, but then most importantly, we have all our messages translated from Spanish, Chinese, and English. So that's one of the most important things, is that we make sure all our information that's being given to our parents is all translated. And then another thing is having our school site principals also sending out the message to their school sites and parents through Parent Square that's also translated.
When it comes to reigniting our DELAC, what we consider to be the most important asset is a clear partnership, bi-directional partnership between the district and the board. We were elected early this year in February, so we had time to reconnect among ourselves, create a team, and at the same time, be very clear about our mission. I mean, we are fulfilling a mission of democracy, a mission of representation, and a mission of hearing the voices that matter as well and that represent our children. Because of the fact that we are going into shock mode or into crisis mode, we should not forget that we are committed to a very clear mission of representation. So basically, we, as Joanne was mentioning, making this happen when we are reporting here today, this is not so much the story of the stellar practices as much as we consider every single step that we take a win and a victory. The fact that we celebrated our DELAC and ELACs at the bottom. So it's not just the DELAC at the top organizing one meeting, but actually all the ramifications with the bottom level of the ELACs was a success. And that takes a lot of communication behind the scenes, logistics. People in our board are themselves busy working, responding to contingencies. So it was quite a lot of work of juggling. Also learning from the experience of communication that happened with the Board of Education that also happened on this online platform. For us, we wanted to have that meeting scheduled as it was for May 13th. We wanted to have people present. We didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out to be. But we thought, okay, we need to provide a clear response towards what's going on. We are going to provide an update on the instruction, and at the same time, we wanted to provide a strategy, what we call commitment to action. In every DELAC meeting, we are starting to collect requests and questions from people that the district is committing to providing answers the following meeting. So we avoid that usual comment that we've heard all over the place. These meetings are just about talking, blah, 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 and nothing happens. We want a question and action, a question followed by an action. When parents realize that that is what's going to happen, and that's what this is the reality that we are bringing in with our new board and new collaboration with the district, then success will happen. That's the theory of action. Results. During that meeting, we got 120 attendees, which is a record-setting figure for our district. And that is going to have implications. I mean, when all these people are coming, what is it that we are doing right and what can we do better? So basically, lessons learned, interpretations in virtual settings. We stumbled on that one. We didn't have the simultaneous interpretation as Zoom provide, but we have designed it for the next meeting because everything took 3 times the time. And but it was quite a success that people stayed through all that time. So that told us, even when the meeting lasted 2 hours, people stay, people want answers. So we need to organize this more effectively. We are going to make in consideration, similar to what Veronica Aguila was mentioning earlier, considering timing. How is the turn taking going to take place? How are the pacing considerations? Meetings run slower. Passing the voice or giving the floor from one person to another takes longer. So how do we make that without losing momentum in the meeting? We also have to acknowledge our own fallibility and limitations. This is uncharted territory for everybody. So basically, many of the questions we're going to assume that are going to be followed up with, and that's our commitment. And then we're working collaboratively for more options to engage in this new way. We are moving, since we were so successful in having 120 people coming to us, even when we go back to in-person meetings, we are really considering maintaining this online format of engagement because it's a skill that we have all learned. So publicize widely multiple channels, through principals, through WhatsApp group, through the board, through all potential channels to make sure that people come. Make the conversations. Even in our groups, we hear, well, we need to tell parents how computers are turned on, which is important. We need to tell parents what we are doing. How about also hearing what parents have to say and what questions they have? So that's important to make it very clear that this is a bridge that we are building and it's bi-directional. It goes both ways. It's not talking at parents, but actually hearing what they want to say. We have to be very flexible before, during, and after the meetings and accept that not everything will work as planned. No battle plan survives the battle per se, somebody said, and particularly commit to action. What we say, we are going to follow through, particularly because as we are moving forward, we have the new ELCA moving forward. We have budget cuts, and the parents need a seat at the table to have an opinion on what they think is essential to maintain the population's services for English learners. So next steps. We didn't get to have everybody to talk, so we're going to have an extraordinary Q&A session. So we are going above and beyond what the requirements are coming from the CD, and we're going to have just a Q&A meeting. Everybody say what you have in mind, celebrate what you got to celebrate, but inquire and press into what you have to and what you want to know. But of course, understanding that we are doing the best we can in collaboration with the district, and that we accept that, okay, we will certainly follow up on that. So the DELAC is involved in the reopening district task force, which is important, that the ELLs are institutionally and physically represented in this reopening district task force. And then we are thinking to the future. A wonderful idea that Joanne suggested was how about having a virtual summer retreat with the board, redesigning how we can do it better at the ELACs and the DELAC level. So how we engage meaningfully and how we adapt our processes to an ever-changing reality. So that's our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Shall we begin?
Yes, now we're going to switch to Glendale. Definitely. Go ahead, Lena and Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lena Richter, and I'm the Director of the Categorical Programs here in Glendale Unified. I have with me my colleague and my coordinator, Bonnie Cervantes, who is the coordinator of Categorical Programs. Thank you for having us today. We're super excited and honored to be invited as part of this collaborative. And so what we hope today from this presentation is really to share with you ways in which we can continue to engage our parents, our English learners, students, parents, and families, to get them connected and to keep that homeschool connection, but also to continue to gather feedback and input from our parents through ELAC and DELAC meetings, specifically through various virtual platforms. We've relied heavily on guidance and direction from the county and the state as far as how to move forward with conducting ELAC and DELAC meetings during shelter-in-place orders and school closures. And following the executive order, we have continued to conduct our ELAC and DELAC meetings. Our teacher specialists have been highly instrumental at the site level in conducting those meetings, and Bonnie and I at the district level with our DELAC meetings. So just to give you a little overview of who we are in Glendale, we have been recognized for being a California Distinguished School. 26 of our 32 schools have been recognized. 17 out of 18 of our Title I schools have been recognized as Title I High Achieving. One of our schools has been named the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon School, and 2 of our schools have been named a Green Ribbon School for the state of California. All 4 of our high schools have been ranked in the top 16% of high schools nationwide. We've been recognized for 3 consecutive years by the California Business of Education for being a district honor roll. And 9 schools have been recognized as being Blue Ribbon. And 4 of our middle schools have recently been named as Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. So we have a lot going on, and we're very proud of the work we're doing, but we also know that we have a gap of reaching our students, and that's specifically with our English learners. So we're working hard to see how we can improve not only our connection to our English learner students and families, but also how to really enhance and develop rigor in what we're providing as far as instruction for our English learners. So some important facts about who we are here in Glendale Unified School District. We serve approximately 26,000 students from grades TK through 12th grade. We have approximately 1,300 teachers across 32 schools. Our poverty rate is just under the 55% to receive concentration grants. We are at 54% free and reduced, low income. And we have a very diverse student demographic. Approximately 55.5% of our students are identified as Caucasian, 23% Hispanic, 17, almost 18% Asian. And we have almost 1/4 of our students as English learners. And so that's a significant number. And about 10.5% of our students are identified as students with disabilities. And I just want to go back to the 55.4% Caucasian. Within that group, we have a significant Armenian student group that identify as Caucasian. And of course, with that comes a primary language, which we also have to take into consideration. So our dominant language, our major language here in Glendale is Armenian. And we also have an 88.4% graduation rate district-wide. Now, as I said on the previous slide, Glendale had student demographics represent an ethnically and socioeconomically diverse student population. We have over 53 languages that are spoken in our district, and that's quite a lot. We also have our foreign language academies of Glendale, and I don't know what happened, that one icon slipped down a little bit. And those are our dual language immersion programs, and those are offered district-wide across all levels. And we offer 7 different languages: French, Spanish, Armenian, German, Japanese, Italian, and Korean. So as you can see, we have a multitude of different languages that we have within our district, and a multitude of languages that we really need to be cognizant of as we provide instruction and communication and outreach to our parents. Our major languages are Korean, Armenian, and Spanish. That's our 15% translation rule. So before I pass it on to Bonnie to talk about our ELAC and DELAC meetings, I also want to share a little bit about our district translators. My department oversees 13 district translators who are invaluable to our parent outreach and engagement efforts. And oftentimes they serve as the bridge between our district and our community. So we offer translation and interpretation in mainly 3 languages, as we saw on the previous slide: Armenian, Korean, Spanish, but we also provide translation and interpretation in Arabic. So as a result of transitioning to remote learning and shelter in place, we've had to explore and implement creative ways to continue to engage our parents and our community. We know that there's a discrepancy in our ability to communicate because of language, and we want to make sure that we are really thinking outside of the box when we're developing these meetings, when we're conducting these meetings, and really how to maximize the time in these meetings. From local surveys that we've administered in the past, we know that parents oftentimes feel that their input and their voice in these meetings doesn't make a difference. And that's one thing that we really want to address and bring to the forefront. We do want our parents to know the value of these meetings, and we want them to know that their voice is valued and is important to us. And so our district translators, along with our categorical teacher specialists at the site level, are key factors to the success of our ELAC and our DELAC meetings, really providing that outreach and making those connections with our parents to make sure that they are involved. And Bonnie recently conducted a DELAC meeting that was highly successful a couple of weeks back. And she's going to talk a little bit about how we structured it, what are some of the components that we used on the digital platforms to really make it meaningful and personalize these meetings for our parents. So Bonnie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, boss. Yeah, so one of the things, actually, can we go back to the, oh, sorry. Thank you. So one of the things that we did was kind of dug in and got to work with the translators. We have internal district translators, as Lena mentioned, and it was all about practice, 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 and getting our folks onto the digital platforms and comfortable with them before the actual DELAC meetings started. We had some meetings that were maybe, not as tidy as others, but they were still a success. We've had large attendance-ship in our meetings, much like San Leandro mentioned, because, I think folks just have the time and, they don't have to park or worry about a babysitter. And so inviting them to these has been really key. So I'll speak mostly about DELAC, and then ELAC has been happening at the site level, kind of like in the same fashion. But so for our DELAC, we of course post the agenda electronically on our website and send it to our DELAC members and our EL parents. We typically put out an email invitation and an automated call with, in each of the 3 languages that we are required to use in the district. One of the things that I did for this to kind of mitigate any sort of nonsense was because there was definitely some concern about like Zoom bombing and things like that. So I put out a sort of like just an easy Google form registration for the meeting, and then I emailed the meeting actual password beforehand so that they could get in about 24 hours ahead of time. These are a lot of trial and errors. We've heard of issues where, if you post a meeting link on Twitter, it's a bad idea because somebody in Germany can just pop in. So in order to make sure that our meetings are focused and orderly, there's that. It also kind of serves as a sign-in sheet. So I know that who is in attendance, and I'm able to follow up with them after the meeting and send the minutes and things like that. So so that was pretty good. Let's go to the next slide, I think. We had some newcomer parent chat meetings. So we've been getting people, registering and enrolling in our district continually since COVID, the closure started. And so it was a key element, I think, that Lena was putting together, is just to have a connection, like our San Leandro colleagues mentioned, keep connection with folks, and especially for our newcomers, that is a key element. And so we had those chat meetings. One of the things that I have to recommend with regards to the interpretation feature, so let me talk a little bit about that actually. So the Zoom recently added an interpretation feature to their education licenses. It wasn't available until maybe like a month ago or so. And so we've been using that, and there's some key elements that I've found, some lessons that we've learned. One, make sure that you meet with the interpreters about 15 to 30 minutes before the meeting starts, so that you can get them set up and ready to use it. Even if they've used it before, it's important to kind of just like have everything ready to go before your folks, the attendees come in. And if you establish the protocols. One of the things that is a little bit tough, and if anybody wants to send another note to Zoom to kind of unite on this, Zoom only gives options of 6 different languages, and there's no option for like an other language. So when you set up the interpretation, you just set up the feature, and that's sort of a generic thing, and then you can assign an interpreter during the meeting in which they can switch sort of between channels. But Zoom only gives you an option of about 6 languages, and as Lena mentioned, we have a high Armenian population, and so one of the things we have to explain ahead of time is, if you want to hear Armenian, select Russian. So it's not seamless by any means, but it's something that that we're working on, and we've created for our next meetings, we've created a slide that says like Armenian equals Russian or whatever it might be. So just for that kind of those little, again, it's those little things, but they make a big difference. One of the things that we also have been doing with this is for the sign-in sheet, we use the chat box as a sign-in sheet. When folks sign in, to make sure that we have sort of an attendance, in addition to the Google form I mentioned, just have them sign in with their first and last name in the chat, and then that's easy to download and then attach that for any sort of compliance. And then I'm looking at my notes to make sure I remember. Oh, one of the bigger things too is the marketing. So when you're marketing the meeting, one of the best things I think to add, even though we've done a distribution of laptops and hotspots and things like that, I think it's important for parents to know that you can join on your phone. They don't always realize it. Like if you have a smartphone, you can download this app or whatever it might be. So that's a key element as well. We can put the next slide. So I kind of just talked about these before. Maybe we got to the slide. So the interpreting features I mentioned, the breakout rooms. These you don't have to assign ahead of time, and it's a little bit tough to do so. But you can, well, when you're in the room, you can kind of just assign them randomly. Zoom has the option of just doing random things. The pre-registration feature, I should also mention, with the paid version of Zoom, they do have a pre-registration feature, but since at the time that we were doing this, we didn't quite yet have the paid version. So that's why we use the Google form. So just know that for Zoom, they do have the pre-registration, but at the same time, you do have to pay for it. Oh, an important key element too is to assign a moderator for the chat box to address questions. And if you have an extra interpreter that speaks that language, so that folks can type in their own language, that's great as well. Yeah, as San Leandro mentioned, the increased participation has been really inspiring, and also it has increased that connection for us. So we're happy with how it's gone, and you know, I'm the type of person that enjoys transparency, and you know, just we're all learning with this, and I have been overwhelmed by the kindness and patience of our entire school community in our learning this and trying to do the best we can to keep that connection going.
Thank you, Glendale. So Liz, I think you want to take it away for Val Verde School District. Elizabeth Jimenez.
Okay, let's take it away. But before we start, let's do some shoulder rolls because we've been sitting for a really long time. So 10 back and 10 forward. We've been sitting for a really long time, and you know, we've been Zooming all day, I'm assuming, for work, and then some forward. Okay. Guys, good? Waking up a little bit? Okay. Next slide, please. Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's okay. Go ahead.
So I'm here for ELAC. And I think where we started was kind of analyzing exactly what we needed to do. So we wanted to analyze our responsibilities. This was the first thing. I am the reclassifier as well for our site. So I co-share that position. We have a facilitator, our principal. We have a very engaged community. So first we wanted to analyze the responsibilities, and I won't revisit them because Dr. Veronica Aguilar already did that. But I think when we sat down, we had covered most of these, but the ones that we were focusing on during our distance learning was the SIPSA and attendance, because we had discussed attendance in the classroom, which looks very different from attendance during virtual learning for the students. And SIPSA, because we hadn't gotten to that, and we kind of had been pushing that one back because we kind of kept waiting to see what was going to happen, what next year was going to look like. We don't want to create something or spend money somewhere and have it look completely different, and we wouldn't be able to use that. We actually held that one on Friday. And this is what we knew about our community. We knew that we had one-on-one devices that were provided by the district, and that the parents could use these devices to connect to the calls and to communicate with the teachers. We knew that we had staff that is engaged and accessible, and our classified stepped up to the plate. 75% of our office staff is bilingual. Most of our teachers are bilingual. Our principal is bilingual. So we had very clear lines of communication and opportunities. We knew that parents are wanting information and were comfortable reaching out. I think just because we had really established a sense of community before this happened. And when we were told that we were going to go to virtual learning, we were told on a Friday late night. The third grade team got together Saturday, as I knew that the other teams did, and on Monday we were ready to go. It wasn't mandatory, but we had reached out to parents. We had a parent meeting that first week, just talking about what we didn't know. And just all of us are on the same page and just communicating. We knew that we had Zoom. We have a very strong social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also have a ELAC Facebook page just for our community, because you know, sometimes when you're on Twitter and you're on Instagram, all these things are coming at you and not everything pertains to you. So things that I know pertain are really important. I'll take that and post it to their Facebook page so that they know that that pertains to them and it's important to them and it's important to us. Okay, our challenges, scheduling. Everybody wanted to do stuff. Teachers are Zooming, principal have to Zoom, teachers have to Zoom to plan. We know scheduling was gonna be a huge issue. We only have a certain amount of hours in the day, and we wanted to maximize that. We knew that students may be needing that device during the time that we have our meeting scheduled, and if that's the only device at home that they could use, then they may not be able to join. We knew internet access may be an issue, and we also knew that there's no babysitting. They're at home with all their babies, and that's gonna be their priority. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, laundry, we know. I have 2 kids at home and I don't know what they're doing half the time when I'm working. So we knew, we had tried to keep it very real. And we also, one of our challenges was how to merge our responsibilities that we have as an ELAC, as well as answering parent questions. So this is how we try to overcome them. And you know, in our brain, this was gonna solve everything, and it didn't. But this was kind of our starting point. So we created a master calendar with events and Zoom meetings for all teachers. So that calendar has when every single teacher is Zooming with their students, all the events that we have programmed for our school, and availabilities. So that alleviated 2 of our challenges, the scheduling and the availability for device. So we know your children are not having a Zoom meeting at this time. This is the time where we can interrupt and have a meeting. Internet access, what we did is we called them Avalon Care calls. They're really cute. We made personal phone calls to their families. We created a spreadsheet as well where we were keeping track of everybody's attendance, including Zoom calls and doing the work. Our classified staff and teachers were making personal phone calls and personal Zoom calls to walk parents and everybody over how to access Google Classroom, because some parents said, well, you say Google Classroom and you say Zoom and you say this, that means nothing to me. That's gibberish. I don't know what these things mean. I don't know how to access them. So we actually created Screencastify. We created different things that we put on YouTube on how to access. We had one-on-one phone calls with the parents where you can take over remotely over their computer. So we could show them and walk them through stuff, or we projected our screen. We did a lot of that one-on-one. And if there was a teacher that needed help, our bilingual receptionist, she actually made herself available and created a schedule where you can book her and she would join. And a lot of our other teachers are also joining. So when we did calls for 3rd grade, we did it as a grade level, and we recorded those and we sent them out. So we started doing that for ELAC as well. We knew if you couldn't join, that information is still very important to you. So we recorded those calls and then we would share them. We also sent a survey for families because we're not connecting with them one-on-one, face-to-face. So we don't know what their response was. We didn't know what their challenges were. We didn't know what their opportunities were. So we just sent a survey asking what has been the most helpful, what has been the most challenging. If there was one thing that you would like to tell the teacher or for us to know, what would it be? And we got great response, and we actually used that survey responses to guide our next meeting. And it was just very powerful because, as many of you have mentioned, parents want to know that they're being heard. And that was a way for us to take back exactly the feedback that they gave us and use that as our springboard. That was our starting point, not our starting point. It was a starting point coming from the families. We also had additional opportunities for engagement, and these are community events, I guess you want to see. The first one is Cooking with Sara, 5th grader at our site who comes up with her own recipes and cooks. You can see in the top, there's a bunch of kids that are cooking along with her. The moms and dads and older brothers and older siblings join the calls, and they're cooking along with our little chef. We have Dancing with Ellie. They just did a class yesterday, and there's a bunch of pictures of moms dancing and getting a workout with their students. It's so amazing to see. One of our teachers is a black belt in Taekwondo, so she does a martial arts class. And same thing, the parents are joining in all these, and they're part of the community where language isn't a barrier. at that point. They're able to follow the steps in the recipe. They're able to visualize everything. They're able to visualize the dance steps. We have an ASL class that 2 of our teachers are also doing. We have our coaches, our yard duty aides, whatever you call them at your site. They actually have done reading with our coaches. So they come on twice a week and they read stories to our students. And music with Mr. Smith, he comes on, he's taught us music from around the world. Different beats, drums, keyboarding. Our principal also does, I couldn't get a picture, she does reading with Miss Pulido and baby Leo. So our principal models that. So her and her puppy, her baby, they sit down and they read stories. And it's just a really great way to continue to engage our families. So not only do we engage through ELAC, parent meetings, one-on-ones, phone calls, just being available, but we have these opportunities for families to continue to be engaged with us. So for planning for next year, after everything we learned, because in our brain, everything was going to be seamless from the beginning, and it wasn't. There was times where we didn't have a lot of parent participation. There was times where there was only 1 or 2 parents. We want to increase participation. That is our goal, as I imagine everybody's is. We had started a book club right before this happened. So during the summer, we're going to continue that reading club. That way parents are more comfortable using Zoom, communicating through Zoom more informally, so that when we kick off next year, if we have to continue this platform, they'll be more comfortable. It'll be a kind of like our social transition period for them and us. And we're also thinking of additional activities for parents and children to participate in together, because the dance class and the cooking class, those are both 5th graders that are going to be moving on to middle school. So we're trying to find more students that want to lead something like that, or teachers that want to do a little bit more than that. And Martha, we were using los 4 acuerdos, the 4 agreements. So that's what we're going to be doing over the summer. And that was it. That was what we did, and that's what we continue to hold planning for next year. But above everything, it was the community, parents, teachers, every staff member at our side, working together so that we can strengthen and empower our students. I think we have a beautiful community that is really focused on our students. And it shows. We have a 96% engagement rate. And that's because the other 4% does not have access to internet. So our district has obtained, I think, 900 hotspots that we're going to be distributing. We always sent that out. We already sent out a survey. So we already have the information of our community members that don't have internet access. So we're trying to eliminate another barrier and just make sure that we're all included.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Well, we are at 5:29, so we have a lot of the questions that we gathered, and we're going to move on because we know we have to stop soon. But I can't thank all 3 districts enough for sharing so many wonderful ideas and opportunities for parents to engage. And I think their numbers and their percentages speak for themselves, that it is possible, that it takes an extra effort that's focused, that's consistent, and that's determined. And so we really want to thank all 3 of you. We want to tell you that our very last communities of practice will be next Tuesday, June 9th. And what we're going to do is we're going to really share with you lessons that we've learned from all of these communities of practice. Plus, many of you completed a survey for us about what is happening in terms of distance learning. We want to share with you some of our findings for that. All of it focused on what we think we need to consider for opening school in the fall. You'll be receiving an email from us within 2 days with a link to the recording of this community of practice, the slide deck, the resources, and actually some of the questions that people have been asking. And so, next slide. So what we want to end with, what we've done before, I think Ed is going to put in the chat room a link that we'd like you, all of you, to take 1 more minute to go to that link and to put into the link, to write in the link in 1 or 2 or 3 words at the most, what would be your wish that you could be able to do to support parent engagement? And what would that wish be if you directed it to the state or to your district or to your school, your colleagues, or even to us Californians together? What would you wish for to make parent engagement that much stronger and that much authentic in your community? And so a group who is with us today are exceptional, and we so appreciate you being together with us. We'll stay here for a few more minutes as the wishes keep coming in. And if you still have any more questions or comments for us, please enter them into the chat, and we'll stay on at least for another 3, 4, 5 minutes. So thank you again. Have a wonderful, safe evening, everybody.